the silence is deafening. For months, the narrative surrounding Chris Marek was that of the quiet, unassuming husband of Amy Roloff, the calm and steady presence who just wanted to live a peaceful life away from the constant turmoil of the Roloff family. He was the man who showed up to family gatherings with a polite smile, who helped Amy move out of the farmhouse without any drama, and who seemed perfectly content to let Matt Roloff and Caryn Chandler run the show while he tended to his real estate business and enjoyed quiet evenings with his wife. But what if I told you that while the world was busy underestimating him and dismissing him as unremarkable, Chris Marek was actually building a case with the precision of a forensic accountant and the patience of a seasoned detective, leading to what insiders are now calling the largest scandal in the history of the show? What if the man we all overlooked as background noise was actually the lead investigator in a case that could destroy the Roloff legacy forever? Today, we are going to break down every single detail of this explosive story, from the hidden financial records to the surveillance footage, from the intercepted communications to the shocking federal raid that has left the entire Roloff family reeling. Welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. And most importantly, drop a comment below. Do you think Matt Roloff was actively participating in this scheme, or was Caryn Chandler operating independently behind his back? Does Chris Marek deserve recognition for his investigative work now that he has potentially preserved the legacy of Roloff Farms? We want to hear your thoughts, so do not be shy. Get in the comments section right now and let us know where you stand on this unfolding drama. We are breaking down the explosive allegations surrounding what has now been referred to as the Marek Evidence Collection, a comprehensive archive of proof that has allegedly prompted an FBI raid on Roloff Farms and threatens to expose a money laundering operation that could destroy the legacy of the farm forever. This is not just another tabloid rumor or a fabricated storyline for the show. This is real, and the implications are staggering. The Roloff family has been in the public eye for nearly 2 decades, and we have watched their highs and lows with a sense of familiarity as if they were our own neighbors. But this story changes everything. This story rewrites the narrative of Little People, Big World and reveals a dark underbelly of financial manipulation that nobody saw coming. For years, fans of Little People, Big World have watched the dynamic between Matt and Amy Roloff with a mix of nostalgia and heartbreak. The show began as a heartwarming look at a family navigating the challenges of dwarfism, but over the years, it evolved into a dramatic saga of divorce, property disputes, and fractured relationships. When the divorce was finally finalized, the tension was palpable, and many viewers felt that Amy got the short end of the stick. She was often portrayed as the nagging wife standing in the way of Matt's grand visions, while Matt was painted as the ambitious dreamer who could do no wrong. Then came Chris Marek. He was introduced to the show as the stable, grounded partner, a real estate agent who loved Amy and seemed to have zero interest in the political games of the Roloff family. He was the breath of fresh air that Amy needed, and fans initially embraced him for his calm demeanor and his obvious devotion to Amy. Critics, however, found him uninteresting. They wondered why Amy would choose a man so seemingly passive after years of dealing with a tycoon like Matt Roloff. They questioned his lack of screen presence and his reluctance to engage in the family drama that made the show so compelling. But it turns out that the critics were wrong, and they were wrong in a spectacular way. It now appears that Chris Marek was not just standing idly by while Matt and Caryn Chandler seemingly took control of the farm and its finances. He was watching, listening, and documenting every single detail with a level of meticulousness that would impress even the most seasoned investigator. The label of being unremarkable turns out to be the perfect disguise for a man who was quietly assembling evidence that would bring the FBI knocking on the doors of the family farm. He was playing the long game, and his patience has paid off in ways that nobody could have predicted. While the world was busy dismissing him as a passive bystander, Chris Marek was actually the most dangerous person in the room, and he was gathering proof that would eventually expose a web of deception that had been hidden in plain sight for years. The core of this investigation centers around a company that you have likely never heard of before, CMC Logistics. According to the evidence compiled by Chris Marek, this entity was a shell company that was used to siphon funds from the farm's operations and merchandise sales. On paper, the company was set up to handle shipping and logistics for the farm's pumpkin selling season and other merchandise, which is a legitimate business need for a farm that sells products to thousands of visitors every year. However, the Marek findings allege that CMC Logistics was merely a front for a money laundering operation that had been running for years without anyone noticing. It is alleged that Caryn Chandler, acting as the farm manager and Matt's romantic partner, was the primary operator of this scheme, moving money through the LLC and obscuring the true financial picture from Matt, or at least that is the theory that Chris Marek has put forward. The evidence compiled by Chris Marek is nothing short of staggering. We are talking about surveillance footage that allegedly shows suspicious activity at the farm's warehouse after hours, with vehicles coming and going at odd times and boxes being loaded and unloaded in a manner that seemed designed to avoid detection. We are talking about a hidden financial record that was discovered in the farm office, detailing transactions that simply did not add up, and revealing a pattern of financial activity that raised serious red flags. The Marek evidence collection reportedly includes a series of intercepted communications between Caryn and an unnamed third party, discussing matters of cash flow and strategies for concealing the money trail. These communications are said to be the smoking gun that ties Caryn directly to the scheme and suggests that she was actively working to hide the movement of funds from both Matt and the authorities. These are the things that Chris Marek allegedly found when he decided to dig deeper into the financial affairs of Roloff Farms. He had access to Amy's share of the farm, and when the buyout negotiations got messy and contentious, his experience in real estate and his natural inclination toward due diligence kicked into high gear. He realized that the numbers did not make sense, and he began to suspect that something was deeply wrong with the farm's financial reporting. He saw a discrepancy where the farm's profits were dwindling despite the massive popularity of the show and the overwhelming success of the pumpkin season. He saw money disappearing into a black hole, and he was determined to find out where it was going and who was responsible for the financial mismanagement that was threatening Amy's future. One of the most intriguing pieces of evidence that Chris Marek allegedly uncovered is the hidden financial record that was found in the farm office. This record is said to contain detailed information about transactions that were never reported to the IRS or to the other stakeholders in the farm. It allegedly shows payments to unknown vendors, unexplained withdrawals, and a pattern of financial activity that strongly suggests money laundering. The record is handwritten, which is unusual for a modern business, and it appears to have been kept deliberately off the books to avoid detection. This is the kind of evidence that could bring down a family empire, and Chris Marek reportedly understood the significance of what he had found. He knew that this record was the key to unraveling the entire operation, and he made sure to preserve it carefully as evidence. In addition to the financial record, the surveillance footage is perhaps the most visually compelling piece of evidence. According to sources, Chris Marek set up cameras around the farm's warehouse and other key locations to monitor activity after hours. What he allegedly captured was shocking. The footage reportedly shows vehicles pulling up to the warehouse late at night, with individuals loading and unloading boxes in a hurried manner. The vehicles are said to be unmarked, and the individuals appear to be trying to avoid being identified. This footage, combined with the financial records and the intercepted communications, paints a picture of a well-organized operation that was designed to funnel money away from the farm and into the pockets of those running the scheme. It is the kind of evidence that prosecutors dream of, and it is the reason why the FBI took the allegations seriously enough to launch a full-scale investigation. This is where the plot thickens, and this is where the story becomes truly complicated. The question on everyone's mind is whether Matt Roloff was an active participant in this scheme, or whether he was simply a victim of Caryn Chandler's manipulation. The evidence compiled by Marek reportedly suggests that Matt may not have been directly involved in the money laundering operation, but it also raises serious questions about his awareness of the financial irregularities. After all, Matt has always been portrayed as the business mind behind Roloff Farms, the visionary who turned a pumpkin patch into a multi-million-dollar empire. If anyone should have noticed the discrepancies in the farm's finances, it should have been Matt. But the evidence suggests that either Matt was willfully blind to what was happening, or he was actively complicit in the scheme. The surveillance footage allegedly shows Matt's vehicles at the warehouse on several occasions, and the intercepted communications between Caryn and the third party sometimes reference Matt's knowledge of certain transactions. Some insiders believe that Matt was in on the scam from the beginning, using Caryn as a front to hide his own financial activities. They argue that Matt has always been obsessed with money and control, and that he would never have allowed Caryn to run a scheme like this without his knowledge and approval. They point to his history of making unilateral decisions about the farm and his tendency to prioritize his own interests over those of his family as evidence that he is capable of such deception. Others believe that Matt is just as much a victim as Amy, and that Caryn manipulated him just as she manipulated the farm's finances. They point to Matt's visible distress in recent seasons and his increasingly strained relationship with his children as evidence that he is being controlled by Caryn. They argue that Matt is a proud man who would never admit to being duped, but that the evidence suggests he was blindsided by Caryn, just like everyone else. But the truth remains elusive, and only time and the ongoing investigation will reveal whether Matt is a perpetrator or a victim in this unfolding scandal. The legal proceedings will undoubtedly be complex and lengthy, and the Roloff family will have to endure intense scrutiny from the media and the public. The farm that has been their home and their livelihood for decades is now at the center of a criminal investigation, and the outcome is far from certain. So, does Marek deserve recognition for his investigative work after being dismissed as uninteresting for so many years? The answer is a resounding yes. The man who was underestimated and overlooked has turned out to be the most effective investigator the franchise has ever seen. He did not just protect his wife from a bad business deal, he has potentially saved her from being bankrupted by fraud. He has exposed a web of deception that could have destroyed the Roloff legacy entirely, and he has done so with a level of patience and strategic thinking that deserves recognition. Marek understood that the best way to catch someone in a lie is to let them keep talking, and he applied that principle to the financial dealings of the farm. He watched, he waited, and he struck at exactly the right moment. Marek's transformation from quiet husband to lead detective is a story that would make for a compelling movie. He used his real estate expertise, his attention to detail, and his willingness to be underestimated to gather the evidence that would eventually bring the FBI to the farm's doorstep. He knew that he was dealing with people who were confident in their ability to hide their tracks, and he used that confidence against them. By playing the role of the disinterested stepfather, he was able to gather evidence that would have been impossible to obtain if he had been more overt in his investigations. Now, the legacy of Roloff Farms hangs in the balance, and the repercussions of this scandal will be felt for years to come. As we wait for the legal proceedings to unfold, one thing is clear. The legacy of Roloff Farms is hanging by a thread. If the allegations are true, Matt Roloff is not just losing his partner. He might be losing his farm, his reputation, and his family's legacy. The Roloff name has been synonymous with authenticity and family values for nearly 2 decades. but this scandal threatens to tear all of that down. The farm's future is uncertain, and the family's relationships may never recover from the revelations that have come to light. The children, Zach, Jeremy, Molly, and Jacob, have already distanced themselves from the farm in various ways, and this scandal is likely to push them even further away. The family that was once united on screen is now fractured beyond repair, and the blame for that fracture will be debated for years to come. The legal implications of this case are enormous. If Caryn Chandler is found guilty of money laundering, she could face significant prison time, and the farm could be subject to asset forfeiture. The IRS will likely be involved in the investigation, and the financial records of the farm will be scrutinized with a fine-toothed comb. The Roloff family will have to navigate a legal minefield, and the fallout from this scandal will be felt for years to come. The legal fees alone could be crippling, and the negative publicity could damage the farm's brand beyond repair. Even if Matt and Caryn are ultimately exonerated, the damage to their reputations may be irreversible. The Roloff family has always been a source of inspiration for many viewers, showing that people with disabilities can lead fulfilling and successful lives. But this scandal threatens to overshadow all of that positive work and reduce the family to a cautionary tale about greed and deception. The legacy of the farm, which was built on the idea of family, community, and hard work, is now being threatened by allegations of fraud and financial manipulation. It is a tragic turn of events that nobody could have predicted, and it serves as a reminder that even the most successful families can be torn apart by secrets and lies. In conclusion, this is a story that rewrites everything we thought we knew about Little People Big World. Chris Marek has gone from being the overlooked stepfather to the man who brought a king to his knees, and the question of whether Matt was an accomplice or a victim remains unanswered. The evidence compiled by Chris Marek is a testament to the power of patience, attention to detail, and the willingness to look beyond the surface. It is a story that reminds us that sometimes the quietest people are the ones who see the most, and that the greatest surprises often come from those we least expect. Chris Marek has secured his place in the history of this family as the man who preserved the legacy, and his actions will be remembered for generations to come. The investigation into Roloff Farms has now entered a new and even more shocking phase, and the revelations just keep coming. While we have already covered the initial discovery of the hidden financial records, the surveillance footage, and the intercepted communications, there is so much more to this story that has yet to be uncovered. Today, we are going to dig even deeper into the Marek evidence collection and explore the additional layers of this scandal that have left everyone in the Roloff family circle absolutely stunned. We are going to examine the timeline of events leading up to the federal raid, the reactions from family members, the potential legal consequences, and the broader implications for the future of the farm and the family legacy. This is not just a story about money. This is a story about betrayal, deception, and the lengths one man went to in order to protect the woman he loves and the heritage she helped build. Welcome back to the channel. Make sure you have already hit that like button and subscribe, because the updates we are bringing you today are absolutely critical to understanding the full scope of this scandal. And as always, drop a comment below. Do you think the other Roloff children knew about these financial irregularities? Did they suspect something was wrong long before Chris Marek started his investigation? We want to hear from you, so do not hesitate to share your thoughts in the comment section. Let us start by examining the timeline of events that led to this moment. According to sources close to the family, Chris Marek began his unofficial investigation approximately 2 years ago, around the time when the buyout negotiations between Matt and Amy were becoming increasingly tense and hostile. Amy had agreed to sell her share of the farm to Matt, but the terms of the agreement were hotly contested, and Amy felt that she was being pressured into accepting a deal that was far below the true value of her share. It was during this period that Chris Marek, using his expertise as a real estate professional, started to notice discrepancies in the financial documents that were being presented to Amy. He realized that the farm was generating significant revenue from the pumpkin season, the merchandise sales, and the show itself. But that money was not being properly accounted for in the buyout calculations. This raised immediate red flags for Chris, and he began to dig deeper, determined to uncover the truth. As Chris Marek continued his investigation, he discovered that the farm was using multiple LLCs and business entities to manage its operations, which is not unusual for a large enterprise like Roloff Farms. However, what was unusual was the way in which some of these entities were being used to move money around without proper documentation or transparency. One of these entities, CMC Logistics, caught Chris's attention because it was receiving payments from the farm but was not providing any clear services in return. The name itself seemed innocuous, a simple logistics company, but the financial transactions associated with it told a very different story. Chris began to trace the flow of money through CMC Logistics and discovered that funds were being diverted into accounts that were not connected to the farm's core operations. This was the moment when Chris realized that he was dealing with something far more serious than just poor bookkeeping. He was dealing with a potential criminal enterprise. The surveillance footage that Chris Marek allegedly obtained is perhaps the most damning piece of evidence in the entire collection. According to insiders, Chris installed cameras in strategic locations around the farm, including the main warehouse, the storage facilities, and even the farm office. He did this after noticing that there were significant discrepancies between the inventory records and the actual sales figures. He suspected that merchandise was being removed from the farm without being properly recorded, and the footage confirmed his suspicions. The cameras allegedly captured individuals loading large quantities of farm merchandise into unmarked vehicles during the late night and early morning hours. These individuals were not wearing farm uniforms, and they appeared to be deliberately avoiding the main entrances and the security lighting. Chris documented these incidents meticulously, recording the dates, times, and vehicle descriptions to build a comprehensive case. But the evidence did not stop there. Chris Marek also reportedly gained access to a series of communications that had been exchanged between Caryn Chandler and an unnamed business associate. These communications were allegedly found on a shared computer in the farm office, and they contained references to moving money, hiding assets, and avoiding detection by tax authorities. Caryn reportedly discussed the need to keep certain transactions off the books and to create a paper trail that would be difficult to follow. She also allegedly expressed frustration with Matt's lack of involvement in the financial details of the farm, suggesting that Matt was too focused on the big picture to notice the smaller financial maneuvers that were taking place. This suggests that Caryn may have been operating independently, taking advantage of Matt's trust and his tendency to delegate financial matters to others. The question of Matt Roloff's involvement remains the central mystery of this entire saga. While the evidence suggests that Caryn was the primary architect of the scheme, it is difficult to believe that Matt was completely unaware of what was happening on his own farm. After all, Matt has always prided himself on being a hands-on business owner who is involved in every aspect of the farm's operations. He has been the face of the farm for decades, and he has consistently portrayed himself as the driving force behind its success. If anyone should have noticed that money was being siphoned out of the business, it should have been Matt. The fact that he did not notice, or that he chose not to notice, raises serious questions about his role in the scheme. Some family members have reportedly expressed suspicion that Matt was turning a blind eye to Caryn's activities because he was benefiting from them in some way. Others believe that Matt was simply too trusting and too focused on his own projects to pay attention to the details of the farm's finances. The federal raid on Roloff Farms was a dramatic and highly publicized event that sent shockwaves through the reality television community. According to eyewitnesses, FBI agents arrived at the farm early in the morning before the pumpkin season activities had begun. They were accompanied by IRS investigators and forensic accountants who began to search the farm office, the warehouse, and the storage facilities. The agents were reportedly looking for financial records, computers, and other documents that could provide evidence of money laundering and tax evasion. The raid was conducted with professionalism and precision, but it was impossible to miss the sight of federal agents swarming the farm that has been a beloved backdrop for millions of viewers for nearly 20 years. The agents seized several computers, boxes of financial documents, and other materials that are now being analyzed as part of the ongoing investigation. The reaction from the Roloff family members has been varied and emotional. Amy Roloff, who has been divorced from Matt for several years, has reportedly been devastated by the revelations. She is said to feel a deep sense of betrayal, not just from Caryn Chandler, but also from Matt, whom she believes should have been more vigilant in protecting the family's assets. Amy has always been protective of the farm's legacy, and the idea that it was being used for illegal activities is deeply troubling to her. She has also expressed gratitude to Chris Marek for his investigative work, recognizing that his efforts have potentially saved her from financial ruin. According to sources, Amy has been providing emotional support to Chris as he navigates the aftermath of the investigation, and their bond has grown even stronger as a result of this crisis. Matt Roloff, on the other hand, has been publicly silent on the matter, but those close to him say that he is in a state of shock and denial. Matt has spent his entire adult life building Roloff Farms into a successful enterprise, and the idea that it could all be taken away from him is almost too much to bear. He is reportedly struggling to accept that Caryn may have been deceiving him, and he is finding it difficult to reconcile the woman he loves with the person who allegedly orchestrated a money laundering scheme on his own property. Matt's children, Zach, Jeremy, Molly, and Jacob, have also been affected by the scandal, with some of them reportedly feeling vindicated in their decision to distance themselves from the farm and its operations. The children have always been protective of their mother, Amy, and they have often expressed frustration with Matt's behavior and his treatment of Amy. The scandal has only deepened the divide between Matt and his children, and it is unclear whether those relationships can ever be fully repaired.